Okay, so I'm back in my code editor and I'm located in lecture 39, which is located in full stack-course 5 examples folder. And right now we're looking at routes.js. And the way this application stands right now, it's basically a copy of lecture 38, which is one lecture before this one. Let's take a look at the browser. So here we have welcome to pre-made no cookie shopping list. If we click our pre-made no cookie shopping list, you'll see that the list will appear right here. What we would like to do is we would like to be able to have each one of these items right here clickable, and when I click it, it should show me the details about this particular shopping list item. If you remember, when we look at our shopping list service.js, you'll see that besides the name and the quantity, we also have a description of each item. So we should be able to get at that description, but one item at a time. Let's go ahead and close this and let's go to routes.js. So the first thing we need to do is we need to add that state that displays the item detail. Let's go ahead and scroll all the way to the bottom here, and we'll open up and make one more state, and we'll call the state item detail, and we'll configure the state with a URL, and the URL will be /item-detail / and we'll give it a parameter because we need to know which item ID 0, 1, or 2, because we have 3 items and this is an array, so it's 0 based. We need to know which index in this item array we're trying to look at, and we'll call this parameter item ID. Okay, so now we have the URL mapped. Let's go ahead and create a template URL, and we'll point it to something I already have, which is the item detail.template.html, which is sitting right here. And basically all it is a couple of links, one taking you to the home state, the other one taking you to the main list. And basically all this does is says, here's the item name, and the item name is, for some reason, repeated here twice, which I'm not sure why, but maybe we styled it a little bit different. But point is, we're outputting the item name, the item quantity, and the item detail all at the same time, so we see a very detailed list. Let's go back to the state configuration. It will give it the URL for our template of source shopping list /templates /item-detail.template.html. Okay, we'll put a comma over there. And we'll also specify a controller, and the controller will specify called item detail or detail controller, and we'll say it as item detail. And we also have the controller, the item detail controller here, just started right here. So we just registered it. We didn't really do much with it yet. So we'll do that in a second. So now that we have the controller, we need our resolve property because we're going to have to pull those items from our shopping list service and then pull out just the item that we need based on this item ID parameter. So we'll say resolve. We want it to be resolved before the state is activated, and we'll call it item. Before it was items, and now it's just one item. And again, we'll put a square brackets for an array. And what we need to inject here is, number one is state params. That's what's going to give us the value of this parameter. We're going to pull it out from the state param service. And we also need our shopping service, shopping list service, because that's where we're going to get the entire list of items. Okay, we'll put a comma here, and then we'll say function, and we'll probably just actually put it on the next line so it won't be so messy. And this function now is going to take state params, because that's what we specified, and shopping list service. Okay, in fact, let's just put it right here. There's no really good way to format this properly, but maybe we'll just move this like this, so at least it'll be a little bit more legible. Let's maybe one more time. Okay, so what do we need to return here? Well, we need to first return the promise, and the way we return a promise is by calling return shopping list service dot get items, but we don't need all the items. We need to say then, and we need to, since then also returns a promise, as you remember, those things are chainable, we're going to have to open a parens, and we'll close it right here with a semicolon, but inside we need another function, the success function, and a success function is going to return our items, right? So let's maybe indent it one more time here. Let's create then. Here we go. So then this is where the function ends. Maybe we'll leave it right here. And so inside of that function, we need to return the items that were passed to us through this asynchronous shopping list service, but we need to look up this specific item that is being referred to by the item ID. And the way we could do that is by using our state params service, state params dot item ID. So now this item ID, whatever it is, 0, 1, or 2, is going to get placed inside of these square brackets, and therefore we'll find the right item in our items array, and that's the item that's going to get assigned to the item resolve property. Okay, let's put a semicolon here, and let's save that. Okay, so we're good to go here. We have the item, and we're ready to inject this resolve item into our controller, and our controller is item detail controller. Let's go ahead and copy the item. Let's go to our item detail controller. So the first thing we need to do, well, we're going to put an item right here, but we also need to make sure that we protect our controller from minification. So we'll say $inject, and we'll open up an array, and we'll say item right here. So now we're injecting this item into this item detail controller. And what we need to do here is we need to expose those properties of a particular item that our template expects. Let's take a look at our template again. Our template expects the name, the quantity, and the description. So let's go ahead and do that. We'll first say item detail.name equals to item.name. That's the item that was injected into our controller. Then item detail.quantity equals item.quantity. And also item detail.description equals to item detail or item.description. Okay, so now we've injected that item and we've copied the item's properties onto our item detail, which is the instance of our controller, which is what we're using inside of the template. Okay, so far so good. We should be able to save all this and then go back to our browser and be able to invoke this item details with a particular ID. Let's go there and let's go to our browser and let's go ahead and say it's #/item detail. We ended up having 2 slashes here. We don't need that. And instead of slash with a curly braces, we'll say 2. And when we do that, you see we get all the item details for number 2. Now the only thing we don't have here is that these things are still not clickable. We can make them clickable using our UI sref directive. Let's go back to the shopping list template. And the shopping list.template.html is something that belongs to the shopping list component, and that's a thing that loops over our items when we display our main shopping list and puts them in these bulleted list. Okay, so what we want to do is we want this item to be clickable. So let's go ahead and enter our UI-sref, and we'll have it equal to, we have our name of the state, which is item detail. Let's copy that. We'll place it right here, and we're invoking it as a function with an object, and the object is supposed to have our item ID, and the item ID is going to be whatever it is right now through the ng repeat loop, which we could specify by using just $index. That's the index, and let's maybe clean it up a little bit so we could see it a little bit better. There we go. So now we have this as a clickable item. The only thing that we don't have yet is how do we display it to the user that it's clickable? In other words, when the user rolls over this item, we want some visual effect to kick in. Well, actually, I already pre-coded that, and we're using this attribute UI sref as the selector in our CSS. So if you look at our styles.css, scroll down here, we say that any li that has a UI sref, on hover, we're going to make it block. We're going to make the cursor the pointer. We're going to highlight the border around it with black 1 pixel, and we're going to increase the padding a little bit left and right. Okay, let's go ahead and save all that. Let's go back to our browser. Let's start from the very beginning. When we click on the cookie, it will wait about 800 milliseconds. We'll get here, and now as we scroll over each item, the cursor turns into a pointer, and now we could click on it. And if we click on it, take a look what's going to happen. Well, we clicked on the first item, which is item 0. Now our URL is item detail/0, and we see the item 0, which is sugar, and get our description here. Sugar used for baking delicious baked goods. right? And if we click back to the list, it's going to take 800 milliseconds. It will take us back to the list. We'll click the second item. It will take a little bit, and we get item 1, which is the second item in our array. And again, we get all the names and descriptions. And that, by the way, that initial span that we spoke about, let's go back to our template and see that initial span that's displaying this. Well, that's just part of the breadcrumbs that we're creating as kind of on top as to where we are. We're at home, list, flower item. So we can go back all the way to home, and everything is working as it should. Okay, so let's summarize. The state's URL property can be declared with parameters. Parameters are wrapped in curly braces after a slash. Parameters can also have more complex matching rules other than just a string, and in fact, UI Router supports even regular expression matching. Once the browser goes to the URL that is matched by a URL with parameters, in order to retrieve those parameters, you use the $stateParam service. And the way you retrieve it is by specifying state params dot the param name that's declared in the URL of the state. When you're trying to construct a URL with the UI-sref directive, you specify the state name as a function name and then pass an object into that function such that the keys in the object are the parameter names that have been declared in the state's URL property.